So, in our latest live session where I walked through the BA Blocks curriculum, I made a point of the fact that I believe that business analysis training programs should always be built from the bottom up, meaning that you should be looking at actual job postings that employers are putting out there in the market and then build your training program based on the skills that those employers are looking for. Many training programs out there take the approach of they take a very top-down approach, meaning that typically what they do is they'll look at an overarching framework such as the BA BOK from the IIBA, and they'll start to teach the materials in that framework. Understanding that what your training is aimed to do is to make sure that you are actually capable of doing the work that employers want you to do. It only makes sense for you to have the skills in that program that the employers are asking for. And so as part of the BA Blocks training program, what I've done is I've designed it specifically by looking at the job postings and applying my own experience as a business analyst and consulting with other industry professionals to make sure that the things that are being taught in the program are actual skills that employers need with minimal wasted time and effort for the students. So that you're not learning things that you're not actually going to be using in your day-to-day work. Now, to build on that, what I wanted to do in this video is to actually walk you through an actual job posting where you can start to see how the skills that the employer is looking for are the skills that you should actually be learning in a training program. Okay, so what I have here beside me is a job posting for a junior business analyst role in actuarial sciences for Prudential in Newark, New Jersey. It's posted about 3 weeks ago, so I'm going to walk us through in depth of all the requirements that this job posting has in a minute. But before I do that, I want to actually talk about what this job pays. The posting itself doesn't actually tell us, but there is some information as part of the job posting that can give you an idea of what this job might pay you based on certain assumptions. So the LinkedIn salary estimator actually gives us an idea of what LinkedIn thinks that this job might pay as for a salary, and that number is close to about $60,000 US per year. Now, the amount of confidence we have in that number is probably not very high because really it's only based on 3 responses of salary information that other people have given. So basically, LinkedIn is only looking at 3 responses as their data set to come up with this estimate. But nevertheless, it should give you some sense of what salaries for that job look like. Level of confidence in that number maybe isn't as high as possible, but this is really the next best thing that you can get next to that employer actually telling you what they're paying for that role. All right, so now that we have a good sense of that, let's go back into the job posting itself. So it's always very important to read the very first part of this because typically what employers will do is that they will give you a good sense of where the role fits within their organization. And so Prudential has done this with this role by telling you that this business analyst role actually reports into the Actuarial and Finance Technology group inside of their enterprise IT group. And so normally, not all business analysts actually report into IT groups. You have some business analysts that actually report into the business side of the organization, and then they end up working with the IT groups on their projects. The majority of business analyst roles actually do report into IT. So this is one of those roles. And what you can learn from this is a little bit more about the internal structure of Prudential itself. So just by reading this, now you know that there is a group, probably a division or a department within the IT group that is called Actuarial and Financial Technology. Right, so they give that away in this job posting, so you already know about a little bit about their internal structure. And what they tell you here is that they're looking for a business analyst role that is going to be doing a little bit of project management work, and they're going to be working on their actuarial systems, interfaces, and extracts. And so just this line right here, actuarial system interfaces and extracts, tells you a few different things. Number one is that Prudential has what they call actuarial systems. Actuarial systems are basically systems that insurance companies and some investment companies will use to crunch a lot of data, for lack of a better way of explaining it. They crunch a lot of data to come up with policies on how they should structure their insurance products or their investment products. Now, so they have actuarial systems, and they want you to do some work on the interfaces, and they want you to do some extracts, which should give you some clues about the type of skills that they're going to ask you to have. So they call this a junior business analyst role, but this gives me some indications that this role is going to maybe require some systems analyst related skills. And when we jump down to the actual requirements for this, you'll see that right away here that near the bottom here, they tell you that they want you to have some basic ability to read, to code, and to debug SQL queries. Right, so right there, you know that this is maybe a role that is oriented a little bit more towards a business systems analyst archetype of a role than a business process analyst or a generalist BA. So let's take a look at all of the requirements from top to bottom. What they're asking you to do is to support the business analysis and project management activities for the projects that they're going to assign you. What you have to do in this role, and this is what really makes this a good role for somebody who's just starting out their career, is that they are telling you right away that they want you to start learning their methodologies and their tools. And so there is room for professional development in this role because they have the expectation that you're going to learn the way that they do things. So when you first start off their career, they're going to give you the opportunity to do some learning before you're producing at your full capacity, right? So learning the methodologies and the tools. And then we get into the core of what all business analysts do. All right. They want you to assess and document what they call the business requirements, and they want you to write functional specifications. Okay. In the live session that we did for the BA Blocks curriculum, I made a great deal I put a great deal of emphasis on the fact that every business analyst out there needs to make sure that they know how to write business requirements and that they know how to produce functional specifications. I believe that a business analyst can't really call themselves a business analyst unless they have this capability, because it is really the defining characteristic of a business analyst. Is the ability to understand what the business needs and the ability to translate that into what it is that the development team has to build. So the ability to produce business requirements and the ability to produce functional specifications. Now, if we dive a little bit deeply into our curriculum, you see that some of the other skills that we teach as part of this program are also required in that program, in that job posting. So the SQL course that we have here for databases, which is a bit of an advanced course, branches off from the logical data modeling course that we're going to have. And the logical data modeling really has to do with the design of data structures. Okay. So right away, you see that you have to make sure that if you want to be a business analyst, you have to learn that. And then if you want to be more of a business systems analyst, you want to start following some of the skill sets that are required here. Even with the interfaces skills that they're asking for, you see right away here that we have a course specifically on system interfaces, because of the fact that most business systems analysts operate, they do their work on the system side of things, and the majority of that work is normally on interfaces, and it is data related. Okay, so with that said, let's dive right back into the requirements of the job posting. So we see here that you're required to write business requirements, functional specifications, and design and conduct testing of the functional testing of the technical solutions. And so this role also has some quality assurance skills that you're going to need to pick up eventually, because once the system is delivered, they expect you to do a little bit of testing on that system. This might give you some more indications on, might give you some clues as to whether or not Prudential or that IT group inside Prudential actually has a dedicated QA group or not. Because a lot of times when they ask business analysts to do testing, that normally means is that they don't actually have a dedicated QA group, or they have, or it might also mean that they want you to do some pre-testing before you send the solution to the QA group. So reading these job postings gives you some clues about how the company or how the employer actually structures themselves internally. Okay. The next skill that they ask for here is the data analysis and design. And again, a lot of this requires you to have the skills to do logical data modeling and understanding how databases are structured and how data is structured inside databases to be able to do that. We've already said that they have the requirement for coding and debugging SQL queries. And they expect you to have some QA skills, meaning that you have to develop some test scripts, and they might actually expect you to execute some of those test scripts as well. Now, the majority of this we've covered. They'll tell you a little bit more about what their company is structured like, but let's dive deeply into what else they're looking for as part of this job posting. So you can see right away here that they are giving you some clues about what kind of work they expect you to do. So they're saying that they have a number of projects coming up in 2020, and that's the reason why they are hiring for this role. And that's going to be, those are going to be some implementation projects, again, on their actuarial systems. And then they dive right into some of the requirements that they have for the job. So you'll notice here that the college degree in accounting, finance, business management is preferred, but it's not required. Okay, so that's also a good indication because you can see that what they're really looking for here is somebody who's willing to learn. It's better if you have a degree in this area, but it's not necessarily a mandatory requirement. Many organizations tend to make that a mandatory requirement. So it's good to see here that Prudential is not doing that. It's not forcing that. They want you to have good analytical skills, which is part and parcel of the BA role. Strong verbal and communication and written communication skills, the ability to work independently and as part of a team. So these are all really characteristics of being a professional as opposed to actual business analyst skills. Most organizations will ask you to know how to work with Microsoft Office. Most of the functional requirement, the functional specification and business requirements work that you do is going to be using basic tools like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Visio. So that's why that requirement is there. Again, they want you to have some proficiency with SQL, and then it looks like they're looking for somebody who has maybe a little bit of experience doing the type of work. So if you're an analyst or if you're just trying to become an analyst and you don't actually have the 1 to 3 years experience, you should apply for this role anyways, because typically this is a preference. You see that it's really at the bottom of their list. It's a preference that they have. But if Prudential is not able to find somebody who has that, they're going to take the next best thing, which is somebody who has a lot of the skills that they're looking for, but that doesn't necessarily have the 1 to 3 years of experience. And because this is a junior business analyst role where they're expecting you to learn how they function and how they do things, their own methodologies, if they don't find somebody who has this, they're going to take the next best thing, which is a person who's willing to learn the materials and they have some of the basic skills. So I hope that this gives you a good sense of how to read a job posting, first of all, and it gives you a good sense of how the skills that an employer looks for are the skills that you should really be aiming at learning. Okay, it's good to go through the larger frameworks, but if your goal is to land a job as quickly as possible, the thing that you need to make sure you do is that you start to understand job postings really well, and that you start to figure out how you can reverse engineer a job posting into a career development plan for yourself. What I really mean by that is that you have to, in order for you to get to your goal, which is the job, you really look at the job posting and you look at the types of things that they're looking for, and then you reverse engineer that into really a skills development plan for yourself. If you were to do that with this role, let's say, for example, you are somebody who's interested in becoming an analyst, but you don't have any experience. To get into this type of a role, what you would do is you would look at all of the requirements that they have, the ability to do business requirements, the ability to do functional specifications, and learn a little bit of SQL and data management and data structure design. Learn some SQL, build up those skills so that you're capable of applying for this type of role somewhere down the line, right? That's the approach really you should be taking with your career. If you were to take a program, or if you go to the IIBA, what you're going to end up doing in those situations is that you're going to end up spending a lot of time on things that are not really even related to the job that you are looking at applying for. So what I advocate for always is that you make sure that you're making the best possible use of all of your resources. And doing things in this way is much more effective than trying to take a top-down approach to your career development. So I hope this video has been of help. I'm going to be, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a lot more job posting reviews. The types of job postings I'm looking for are ones that have salary information attached, because really I think that that is the biggest motivating factor in a lot of people's career decisions is salary. But I do have a couple of other job postings that don't necessarily have salary information, but are still very valuable to review and understand so that you can get a good sense of how to read job postings. So I hope this video has been helpful, and I'm looking forward to producing the next one for you in the next little while.